Anthony Salvanto, thank you. Let's bring in our political contributors. Caitlin Huey-Burns is here in New York. She's with RealClearPolitics, and Ed O'Keefe covers Congress for the Washington Post. He's in our Washington bureau. First, Ed, I just want to get your take on what do you think Republicans are going to take out of this Virginia governor's race? They were feeling fairly bullish about potentially being able to win this thing in the last couple of weeks, and it didn't turn out that way, obviously, for them. What are they going to see in these results, and what does that mean for them moving forward?
I think much of their sort of postmortem may actually center on what the president tweeted tonight. He suggested that Ed Gillespie did not fully embrace Trumpism and that it had worked in previous congressional special elections earlier this year, but because Gillespie didn't take on the full tone and tenor of a Trump-like campaign, because he didn't campaign alongside the president, he lost. However, I think many other Republicans are going to look at tonight's results and say Gillespie was smart not to stand with the president, and it could have been even worse for him, but he should not have adopted the divisive, racially motivated campaign messaging that he did use in television commercials and other outreach to voters. And I think you're going to start to see many Republicans across the country who may have gone either way on that realize I can't necessarily do that unless or only if I have to rally Republican-based voters. Here in Virginia, Gillespie needed to do much more than that. He couldn't do it. Not only is he losing, Democrats are making incredible gains tonight in their upper chamber, the House of Delegates. They are on the verge, potentially, of taking back control of it. That was not forecast to happen tonight, but it shows you how deep-rooted the Democratic turnout and enthusiasm was today in the Commonwealth.
I want to talk about that a little bit, Caitlin. It's a big night for Democrats. They won both the governor's races in New Jersey and in Virginia. They won other statewide seats in Virginia, and they did pretty well in the legislature. What do Democrats take out of victories? They have not had a great, let's just put it this way, they have not had a great year dating back to Hillary Clinton's loss and then the special elections this year that they went 0-4 in. So what does this mean for them?
Certainly, I think this victory tonight is extra sweet for Democrats, considering that we are at the one-year mark of the 2016 election, which also seems like a million years ago, but it was a year ago today on this Tuesday. Democrats are going to be very excited about this because they have been looking to rebuild the party in terms of state and local races. Remember, over the course of the Obama presidency, Democrats had lost seats across the country in state legislatures and governorships. And so they are kind of looking to Virginia to hold on to Virginia, which they already have, pick up a seat in New Jersey, and try to gain some more seats that they think they can next year. But these House of Delegate races are really important. And I was talking to a Democratic strategist a few weeks ago who suggested that these races might be where kind of the animating force among the party is, and that could drive some of the turnout at the top. I think also Democrats are going to say that candidate recruitment matters. The type of candidate to win in these kinds of areas matters. I think you're going to have Democrats very excited about tonight, but also knowing that all of these races are different, that while Virginia likes to be considered a bellwether, and in some cases it has been, it's not entirely reliable. And so I think they're going to take this as the victory that it is, but also kind of look to these other races, or they should look to these other races and understand the nuances.
And I know you're going to love this question. I know you won't like this question, actually. This is not a predictor of what's going to happen in 2018, correct?
No, it is not.
And explain why.
Because Virginia is Virginia, and the situation in any other state is going to, depend on national and local factors. And I think there are certainly lessons to be learned, especially if you're a local or a state Democratic Party who is eager to rebuild and find the disaffected voters that are out there, clearly that are out there, and generate their enthusiasm both in financial giving, in boots on the ground, and at the ballot box. And I have a feeling that a lot of Democrats across the country will look at what happened tonight in Virginia, especially in those down ballot races, and think, is there something they did there that we should think about replicating here? But when it comes to the broader trends, clearly tonight there is now evidence, electoral evidence, that the real distrust and disgust that many Americans have with Donald Trump has caused consequences for Republicans especially, and it's going to cause a lot of them, I think, to have to rethink their strategy about what they should be supporting if they're a member of Congress, and how they would run their campaigns, what approach they would take next year. I suspect also, given that Gillespie's decision to seize on concerns about Latino street gangs and to embrace the push to keep Confederate monuments in place, that a lot of Republicans who were thinking or perhaps poised to run on those issues are going to have to step back and think maybe that's just not the way to do it. I've got to look at the issues. I've got to find ways to distinguish myself, but also somehow embrace Trumpism to whatever extent that's possible where it is that that person is running.
Caitlin, we've been talking about this for the last several minutes. We're political nerds. We love this stuff. But why should the average American who's watching results in states that aren't theirs, Virginia, New Jersey, why should they care about these results? Is there something they can take away as an average American from these?
Well, I think that the Virginia results, there is something to take away. New Jersey is significant for the Democratic Party at large, just because, as I mentioned, they're trying to gain some ground in legislatures and in governorships. And that's important for a lot of different reasons, right? Redistricting is key among them. Redistricting in terms of the congressional map, which is shaping the House. I think, though, New Jersey had its own nuances. Of course, the cloud of Chris Christie was very prevalent in that race. Virginia,
it was not just a cloud. It was almost like a...
Yeah.
Overcast for years, it seems. I mean, he's the most unpopular governor in the country.
Exactly, and an incredible fall from grace. But as it pertains to Virginia, Virginia isn't necessarily a reliable bellwether. In 2009, Bob McDonnell won. Bob McDonnell, who I should say also had a big fall from grace, and Republicans took the House. But when Terry McAuliffe, the Democrat, won in 2013, Republicans took over the Senate. So we always try to read the tea leaves from races that are in off years, but I think this year might be a little bit different just because everybody, Democrats and Republicans, have been trying to navigate how to run campaigns in this Trump era. Trump has changed politics. He's either changed it or tapped into certain things, brought up certain things in the electorate. And so I think today Republicans have a couple of answers, are at loss for others. And Democrats, too, even though this is a big victory for them, and those state races or those House of Delegate races are really important to them as well. I think they also have to understand that there are lots of races are different.
You mentioned the Trump era. The latest agenda item that Congress is dealing with is tax reform. The House is marking that bill up now. Talk to us about where they are on that.
Well, politically, I've been really interested in how these races, in Virginia particularly, would shape the tax reform debate, because Republicans have been saying over and over and over again, and I know Ed hears this all the time on the Hill, that we need to pass something to be able to go back to our voters and say we have something to show for our majorities in Congress. But I am also kind of a little bit skeptical of that, because you do have Republicans in places like New York and New Jersey, districts that Democrats are targeting as takeovers, who are skeptical of supporting this bill. You also had a retirement today from a Republican congressman in New Jersey. And that's significant. A Republican congressman from a district that Hillary Clinton won by several points. So everybody's kind of looking to tax reform as the kind of big Band-Aid that Republicans need right now. But I think tonight's results show that it's not entirely clear.
I just want to point out, Ed O'Keefe isn't just sitting around CBS News all night. He actually has a day job at the Washington Post and has some interesting news from a Democratic senators meeting with the National Economic Council Director Gary Cohn. What do you have for us there, Ed?
So we heard about this last night, that a bunch of Democrats were trying to get together with the top economic advisor and Mark Short, who serves as the Legislative Affairs Director for the White House, to talk one last time, perhaps, or just jumpstart conversations between the two parties about how Democrats can find a way to get involved in these negotiations over tax cuts. They've been shut out entirely by House and Senate Republican leaders, and they want to engage. They've got some ideas that they believe could help assure that this bill passes overwhelmingly with support from both parties. They got together today in a conference room in, of all places, the Library of Congress, not at the Capitol and not in one of the congressional offices, but across the street in the Library of Congress, with Gary Cohn and with Mark Short. At one point, we saw Gary Cohn come out of the room and take a call Well, guess who it was? It was the President of the United States calling from South Korea. They put him on speakerphone with the senators gathered around the phone. He talked to them for a little bit about how this entire package is going to be detrimental to wealthy Americans. It's going to help middle-class earners. And he said he has consulted his own accountant about the potential hit he would take if the GOP plan is implemented as written. That was heard by the Democrats in the room and the others. Nobody really sort of interjected or said that that might not be proper for you to be doing, sir. But the conversation continued. Two Democrats, at least, tried to get the president to engage on the proposals they've put forth. Nobody committed to anything. As Joe Manchin, the Democrat from West Virginia, said on the way out, he considered this meeting the first supper and an attempt to get Democrats re-engaged on the issue. But let's be clear, Steve, Republicans aren't really interested in having Democrats engaged on this issue because politically they see this as their one and only opportunity at this point to pass anything that is completely Republican and would enact a priority that they not only want to enact, but desperately need to enact, especially now in light of the results that show that there are people out there upset with Republican inaction on Capitol Hill.
Ed O'Keefe, great stuff there, by the way. Thanks for burning the candle on both ends. You stick around. You and Caitlin Huey-Burns, we'll talk to you more later this hour. Coming